This next song is it's a song we wrote. It's about getting away, I guess. Time of my own. Ready? I got my whiskey, I got my wine. I think I'm losing my fucking mind. But life is easy when you're high, but then you just try to get on fire. Some people say I'm the crazy one. Other people say I'm just having fun. I just will say leave me alone, yeah. Time on my own. The only time I feel I belong is the things they say and what they do alone, oh yeah. It's the time on my own. Mother prays, well daddy plays, sisters out just getting late. Brother's gone, so walk on, and they say you're the crazy one. Some people just wanna see me down. Other people pick me up and spin me around. I just wish they'd leave me alone, yeah. Time on my own. It's the only time I feel I belong. In the things they say and what they do are gone, oh yeah. On my own. Time on my own. Time on my own.
I'm out of here. I got, the drive. So, all right, we got Adams coming up. I mean, that's going to be big.
Biggest gig of our career up to this point.
But is this is that it? Are we done? I mean, does Bacchus continue?
We gotta finish this out.
We gotta finish this out.
Gotta finish the album.
You know what, Andy? Bacchus is the greatest band that nobody's ever heard.
Do you remember our first jam together?
Andy and I got together and we were jamming a lot, writing music and stuff. Unfortunately, we didn't always record things. We didn't always write stuff down. We didn't keep, track rolling because there was some really, just electric type stuff coming out. We knew we had it. We knew that, you've always talked about these writing duos, Jagger, Richards, Page, Plant, Tyler, Perry, and that's what it felt like. We just, and it was nothing scripted. Like Andy would come in with a riff, I'd come in with a riff, and we purposely didn't come in with finished songs. A lot of times didn't even have lyrics written. So it was whatever I was feeling, whatever we were feeling. Lyrically is kind of how things started. So you just keep playing it over and over again. You start with a theme, you start with a story, and then things would develop from there.
Our first show, so we had probably two kind of classic, iconic shows, I guess, coming out shows. One was we did the initial show at McKimmy, which was with the original drummer and guitar player, and that was just our first time playing. So it was a thrill. I remember I remember doing If You Want Me. I remember actually breaking a string in the middle of the song. That was a little stressful, if I remember correctly. I had met my wife, Jody, at the show. She was actually the host of the show, and that kind of plays into things a little later in the Bacchus story.
It was a tough time, though, trying to get the right band, because we had the music, so now we needed to get the band. So we auditioned a lot of people, tried out a lot of people, and they had to be able to be creative and come in and play the originals. I remember one guitar player came in and all he wanted to do was play U2. That didn't last long. You know, Andy didn't have a lot of patience for stuff like that. But the first band, we had a drummer, Mike, and a guitar player. I kind of forget his name.
I think we kind of quickly realized Brian and Mike, the two original guys, were not the right guys for the band. Brian was way too technical. He wanted us to play, we played a Pink Floyd song, I think Comfortably Numb, which, you know, at the time I was pretty one-sided on the type of music I liked, and that was definitely not something I wanted to do. I remember he had pedal boards, and I remember, you know, we didn't know anything about that either. We just had an amp, we plugged in and turned the guitar up and played, and he was into all this technical stuff, and I remember it wasn't working, and it just drove us crazy. Mike, the original drummer, I eventually left the band.
But we had our first bass player, Amy. So, and that was okay. They were, you know, the drummer, guitar player were all right. We just didn't feel it with them.
Bacchus was one of the best bands I've ever been in. I've been in a lot of bands over the years, and I always think back to Bacchus and our years at UMass Amherst, and especially about the original music that Jay and Andy came up with, and I helped put bass lines to.
Then Johnny came along and Phil came along, and Bacchus, you know, the Bacchus that most people remember from those early years, that was the band, and it was all about the originals, right? We wanted to write originals. We did some covers, of course, but we focused on this original brand of Bacchus music. That's where it started.
So I met Jay and Andy along with, you know, a whole bunch of our other old college friends. Freshman year at UMass, Labor Day weekend, fall semester of '89. We were all just best friends right away the whole, you know, year. Some of us stayed on the floor 2 years, I did too. And our doors were never closed. Everyone just hung out with each other all the time. Jay, Andy, and the other guys. It was kind of magical with the music. We all, you know, talked about music constantly and played stuff for each other. Some of the guys, including Jay, he would just pick up a guitar and write songs even back then, before they formed Bacchus.
So the Brick Years, you know, that's where Andy and I started living together, and we just really wanted to, you know, immerse ourselves into the band, into the music. So we were constantly in the basement, you know, throwing out new ideas, and we were just writing, you know, song after song after song. Some stuff stuck, some stuff didn't, you know, but most of our iconic hits that people are asking for when we're at the shows, you know, it's like the first album. The first album of most bands are, some of the greatest bands are the best albums. And for us, those first songs were, you know, it was all about straight ahead rock and roll at a time when rock and roll was, you know, grunge was creeping in, you know, the boy band crap was coming in. You know, just a lot of things was really taking a hit on rock, but we were still straight ahead rock and roll. That's where our roots were. That's, you know, we always say our foundation is Aerosmith, Kiss, Zeppelin, Stones, Beatles. And that's what, you know, a lot of our songs were really geared after. Through thick and thin, through good and bad, through all the years, for whatever reason, Andy and I can write songs together.
Yeah.
You know, and I think our philosophy on the songs is the same. You know, strong choruses, great verses, you know, some structure within the song. Trying to do something not so predictable all the time. They seem simple in many ways, but they're not always that way. But we start with an idea. You know, you write it.
Yeah, a lot of times I'll bring a riff to Jason. A lot of times he'll bring a riff to me, and we build off of it. And usually if you know, if we're just sitting together, and at least in the old days, you'd be like, oh yeah, just keep playing that,
Yeah.
keep playing that.
Yeah, that sounds good. Right?
And the beauty of Jason, which I don't think many singers can do this, is that he would just come up with, he'd just ad-lib lyrics. They wouldn't stick, a lot of them, but he would be able to just sing along and come up with a melody on the spot.
So good side. Let your hair fly free. Oh, you got to move with the breeze. Just close your eyes. Come along for the ride. Believe me, baby. Believe me, baby. This is what I say to you. Believe me, baby. Believe me, baby. Believe me, baby. This is what I say to you. When the light that never seemed to shine above it, and there was no fault of mine. A breeze across your blood seems safe. Confusion is real life, such a waste again. Oh, just close your eyes. Come along for the ride. I'm gonna make you feel so good inside. Let your hair fly free. Oh, you got to move with the breeze. Just close your eyes. Come along for the ride. Yeah. Just close your eyes. Come along for the ride. I'm gonna make you feel so good inside. Let your hair fly free. Oh, you got to move with the breeze. Just close your eyes. Come along for the ride. Yeah. Believe me, baby. Believe me, baby. This is what I say. Believe me, baby. Believe me, baby. Believe me, baby. This is what I say. Put your hands up, come with me to some other place I wanna be. Believe me, baby. Believe me, baby. Believe me, baby. This is what I say to you.
We had a nice support group. I think most of the fans there were for us.
It felt that way.
I mean, we brought the fans, so that's I mean, if you're gonna talk about a battle of the bands, we had a following already.
So it was rigged. I mean, we were by far the best band there. We had, like you said, we had the biggest crowd. We had the most energy.
It was supposed to be judged on all this criteria.
Yeah.
Like if you went down that checklist, it didn't even seem debatable to me.
We came in last place.
I still don't believe that.
There's no way it was possible.
I don't believe. First of all, I don't believe that.
Well, we didn't win.
We didn't win.
We didn't win.
Andy met his soon-to-be wife, Jody, at one of our shows. And, of course, spending a lot of time, and he moved out of the Brick. Practices became harder. We actually had the best practice we've ever had. The best practice that ever took place was when we were writing Room of Glass. It was incredible. Johnny was on fire. Everything was, but that was the last Brick practice. So once the Brick broke up, and I'm not going to blame it on Jody or Andy or their love story. I'm going to say it was the breakup of the Brick.
So we did a few shows, and kind of once again the common theme was writing songs versus playing out. And I wanted to play out. Jason wanted to write songs. I wanted to write songs too, but I also wanted to play out. And then I had moved out of the place we were living together. So it just seems like we were kind of heading in different directions, weren't hanging out as much. And then it just kind of naturally just fizzled. I tried to keep Bacchus going without Jason, and we turned into a cover band. It was really no good.
But we're not going to worry about it now because it's water under the bridge. But we'll say it was the breakup of the Brick. There was something magical about the Brick. The songs, the acoustics, the vibe.
The biggest regret is that we gave up, I think. Even despite the breakups and stuff like that, even after we graduated college, we would talk on the phone, and we were young still, and we always wondered, what if we didn't stop? Where would we be?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we didn't realize is, it takes a long time, right? It takes, and we're building this band, this following, these songs, and we're getting asked to play out and play more gigs, and in the back of our minds, both of us are like, well, we got to go start making money, and we took the easy way out.
Max really is a child of Bacchus, because I met my wife at the first Bacchus show, and we dated throughout the Bacchus years. And then Max, years later, we have Max as our son. Bacchus was non-existent it wasn't non-existent, but we were out of commission for about 25 years. And it was Max that actually helped convince us to bring Bacchus back and became our lead guitarist.
We're at the age where it seems like everybody's talking about how their kid is the next this and that, superstar, genius, whatever. And here's Andy telling me how his son is this incredible guitar player. And, Andy comes from a very musical family. His dad's a professional musician. Andy's a talented musician. So it's not far-fetched that he could be great. But I was like, okay, yeah, sure he is. And then I heard him. And what is he, 13 at this time?
13,
and he's ripping through Zeppelin and Van Halen and Aerosmith, and I was like, holy cow, this he is very good.
So we would be talking on the phone, and I think at the time I was saying, hey, Jason, my son Max is playing guitar, and we're playing in the basement, we're doing these songs, and he's actually getting really good. Yeah. I think that's how the conversations were starting. I guess I came to the point where Max's bar mitzvah was coming, and I wanted to put a little band together so Max could kind of play for his friends and family and stuff. And I asked Jason, we've been seeing each other all these years, and we would jam at my house, his house, but we've never performed in front of people. So I convinced Jason to do a couple songs at Max's bar mitzvah, and that was really what planted the seed.
So I was 13 years old. I had my bar mitzvah. What most kids do, they have a candle lighting ceremony. They'll talk about, people who are meaningful to them, have them light a candle. I was never really a big fan of that. I wanted to do something a little more non-traditional, and I wanted to play. So we played a few songs with my dad and a few of his friends, and Jason was one of those friends. We played Good Times, Bad Times, and Sweet Emotion. We played those songs. It was a good time. And then 3 years later, then Bacchus ended up reuniting.
Max ended up getting to play. He was only supposed to play one song.
We always want to give back, and we want to give new talent a chance. Always give new talent a chance. So, we met a young man. This is not planned. We have literally never played with him. I think his name is Max. Where's Max? Max, come on stage. Where's
he? Basically, he went to a Comic-Con, and he asked, got a picture. We got a picture with Gene Simmons, who I'm obviously a huge Kiss fan. So I knew we just had like maybe 10, 15 seconds with him. And I said, Max, this is your chance. I was like, ask him if you can play. We were going to a Gene Simmons solo concert that night. So real quick, we got the picture with Gene, and then I said, hey, Gene, Max here plays guitar. And I kind of nudged Max, and he got up the nerve to basically say, I brought my guitar. I want to play a song with you tonight. And he said, oh, yeah? He's like, I remember he took his sunglasses off. He looked at him right in the eye. He goes, can you play? And Max was like, yeah. And he said, well, what do you want to play? And he said, I want to play Sheep.
mean, I think the reunion of Bacchus was inevitable, really. You know, 25 years in the making, taking all that time off. I think, you know, the guys had a lot of pent-up energy, and it was just ready to be unleashed.
Eventually, he just said, "Hey, you guys should just stop talking about it and
He said, "Stop being such babies and
just do this already."
So we did it.
So we did it.
And hence the midlife crisis tour. I mean, that first show was a sellout.
Yeah.
I mean, it was mobbed, it was packed. You know, we were still learning, right? We were still getting up. And the thing about Bacchus, which is great, is, you know, we're a little older here, and but this is all new for us. Some people do get jealous of the success that Bacchus has had because they've been out there pumping it for, you know, 20, 30 years, and here we are back at it for 5 years, and, you know, climbing the charts and the ladder, you know. So I get it, I get it, but there's no stopping now.
We had Phil for that, and John McGee from your hometown, who was a guitar player but agreed to play bass for us.
He did us a huge favor.
Yeah.
You know, and he did.
And he did it justice.
And he loved Bacchus.
Yeah,
he loved Bacchus.
He bought into our story. Played with those guys for maybe about a year, or a little less than a year, maybe.
Probably one tour. I think it was a tour and a half, actually.
Experience with Bacchus. Well, I can tell you it was rewarding. It was challenging. For a number of reasons, I had to keep up with these guys who were really good, and they were very focused and also very fun, which was a wonderful part of the experience. But, you know, I also had to transition from playing guitar and thinking like a guitarist to, and I was a little sad. I was like, oh, I can't use the guitar. But once I started playing with them, I had no deep desire to play guitar because Max was doing so great, Andy was doing so great, and the singing and drums were so well done that I was like, why would I ever want to play guitar in this band? I can play bass. So I had to learn some stuff. So I did a lot of work, you know, directly with Phil, who was great to work with. And I had to, thankfully, he kept really great time and kept me on track.
So we did a house party, and we brought in our new bass player, Eric, Eric Bucher, who was experienced bass player.
He was a pro.
He was a pro.
Yeah.
I was looking for a project to get involved in, and the ad from Bacchus caught my eye. Played with them, good group of guys, and I guess what attracted me to them was a couple of things. I mean, first of all, I was a little bit intrigued by the story. I mean, the whole idea of these guys who had played together in college, written music, done things almost 30 years before, and then after a hiatus got back together. You know, Max joining the band, Andy's son on lead guitar, great player, and it was really just a great story. But I think, of course, you don't keep playing with a band just because they've got a good backstory. So what really attracted me even more and kept me with them were the songs. I mean, really, if you listen to those, even going way back to some of their early stuff that they did right back there at UMass, like, say, Time on My Own or things, all the way up through some of their more recent songs, say Blue-Eyed Southern Girl. Listen to that, listen to the music, listen to the lyrics. It's just a really good song. So I think really that's what I liked the most was their original music, and the fact that these guys were very, very committed. I mean, you talk to Andy, you talk to Jay, and this music really meant something to them, still means something to them, and really the music that they play, really they're dedicated to, and that's not always easy to find.
Those first gigs that we did and those first practices, I mean, well, you must have hated it, but we just turned out, we were playing as loud as we could.
I'd come back.
You were like screaming.
I couldn't even talk after like those I couldn't hear or talk after those practices in a small space.
In a very small space, yeah.
And it's not like people say we're still too loud, but we were loud.
During the time that I was with Bacchus in those 2.5 years, we had 4 different drummers, and part of what the process was finding drummers who were not only great drummers with good energy and things too, but also could nail those tracks in the studio also.
After Phil left, we brought in Greg Stein, who was a Berkeley guy, you know, drummer's drummer, like
that's
very
right.
technical. And
Other pro.
I think the one thing he taught us, you know, I don't know if he loved what we were doing necessarily, but he filled in admirably, and I think he had fun.
I think so. Yeah.
But the one thing he kept stressing was dynamics. He's which we didn't. At first, I was a little insulted.
Yeah.
And I didn't really understand, but then I think that was probably the best advice he ever gave us.
Yeah, it's been good. You know, lots of kids don't have that bond with their father. Definitely something that you can take for granted.
I don't know if Max really appreciates the lasting power and just how big Bacchus really is.
My commitment to Bacchus isn't quite as strong as it once was since I've been in college. I've had really busy summers, and then recently, over the past year, I started another band. I've been doing some shows with them, so it's definitely been tough, but we've been making it work.
You know, I think the thing is we have evolved.
Yep,
And we don't take criticism well.
that's true.
And that's,
Neither of us.
Neither of us to each other
Right.
or from.
And
other
we've had
people.
plenty of arguments.
But I think we do learn and we realize things to be true.
Part of it is just keep getting 5 personalities that all gel and get along. Like we get along and we know how to, we fight with each other, but we work through it. You know, and then Max is kind of related to you. I mean, he's, I think you're like his uncle, you know, like, so I mean, I think the 3 of us can butt heads and have no problem with it, but it's the other 2, like, you know, depending on who it is. I mean, the dynamics, as soon as the member changes, the dynamics of the whole band change.
And a lot of times it's, and what we've learned, if you don't love what the music we're playing, and you don't love Bacchus, then it's probably not going to work out in the long run.
Yeah.
Because in reality, and you may disagree with this, you are the leader of the band.
We're currently in the Back in the Groove tour, which is basically because we got 2 guys that we love, and we feel like we're back.
Said, Screw it, we're just going to go back to doing what we do.
Jay and Jim have been great additions to the band.
I first met Andy on the sidelines at a soccer game, and we got to talking music. Turns out he loves Kiss even more than I love Rush, which is a lot, but that's what got me started. When I first heard the Bacchus songs, I could absolutely hear what influenced these guys, the guys that wrote these songs. And it was so easily early Aerosmith. That's all I could hear. There's other things in there now that I've heard a lot more of their songs, but I love early Aerosmith too. Dang, that album, Toys in the Attic, whoo, love that. But their songs have that same hard rock abandon that Aerosmith has. That's why I like them.
Jim and Jay are our new rhythm section, bass guitar, drummer. They're great. They're a great addition. They're great guys. Musically, they're unbelievable, right? They're getting better and better. And so after, you know, the summer of playing a lot, practicing, touring, you know, they're just, it's becoming second nature for them again. They still have some songs that some of the songs that we want to introduce and go over. But musically, they're solid. You know, they've known each other since 6th grade. They've been playing together all these years. They know what one is going to do. And I like it because Andy and I have known each other. Like, there's that bond, you know, that family piece within the band. And in the end, you have to like what we're doing, right? Because it is not for everybody, right? Some people want to get out and they want to play all the most popular songs, right? Because that's what people know. We kind of stick to our guns, and we try to do a lot of what people might expect and might know, but we throw a lot of different things in, so it's not always the songs that you would expect. So they enjoy that. They like the style of music, but I think more than anything, they're having fun. That shows. They want to be here. They want to be part of the band, and we continue to grow. I think they're going to be our backbone.
We had the first recordings at Schuler's Studios. We did 2 songs with Phil.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of learning how to, that was our first time really doing it.
Getting our feet wet.
Yeah, those recordings were fun. So the goal was really to do an album, like the real thing, and the goal was to record at Eric's place. And then that first day that we went there, so the lineup would have been Phil, Eric, the 2 of us, and Max. And the whole theme, basically the first 2 or 3 times we tried to record, the whole theme was about click track.
Yeah. It really had a pretty big effect on the direction of Bacchus. Our main Bacchus drummer that everybody knows, Phil. You know, we went into the studio for the first time, and it was all new to us, right? So the studio, you know, at age, you know, in our 40s, we were in the studio for the first time. So, you know, and sometimes, you know, I guess these producers have different opinions on, you know, going with the flow, going with the feel versus being on the click track. And I see the value of the click track, right, from editing perspective and things like that. But Phil was he was really struggling with it. So it took, you know, the natural feel that he had, and it made it very robotic. So it became tough. You know, we got a couple demo songs done. We never got the album done. And then it, you know, I think it took some of the joy out of Phil's playing in the band, and so then we started this, you know, merry-go-round of new drummers over the, you know, since the reunion, since we came back with the Midlife Crisis tour.
Really, in the whole time that they were together, Bacchus was a live band. And really hadn't done a whole lot of stuff as far as actual recording. Couple of demos that had been done shortly before I joined the band. But it was really something that they were interested in doing, and that I was interested in doing too, is getting in there and laying down some of these songs, some of which had been percolating for decades. There are always challenges when you go in and record, and that's true with anybody. But I think some of the ones that we run into is, you know, rock and roll first and foremost is a live art form, and I think Bacchus is clearly at heart a live band. That's where their energy is. So I think really that was one thing, is you can be a great live musician, but it's a little bit different skill set when you get into the studio, whether it's trying to figure out how to play the same part just exactly the way you played it the time before, whether it's figuring out the arrangements, whether it's playing to a click track. The second part of that really is that, you know, when you get into the studio and you start recording, what you don't want to do is kill that live energy. Because, you know, when you've played the same part over and over and over again, and you're analyzing every little tiny agonizing bit of minutia about the part, after a while it grinds on you. It can really kill the feel of a song, can kill the enthusiasm of the musicians. So to take a great live band like Bacchus and be able to capture some of that raw live energy, but in a way that's friendly to the studio, I think is something that we really worked hard to try to do, and was a challenge at times.
Then we tried my brother.
Your brother that's one of my regrets, is that your brother was the perfect rock and roll drummer for that session.
Yeah.
And he sounded great. And then as soon as he had to start doing the click track, he lost his feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think he got frustrated, and so that session.
And then he did one song. He said, "Just let me play it all the way." Right? He said, "Just let me play it all the way through."
Right.
And I'm not going to worry about the click track. And it turned out that he was almost dead on.
And it was awesome.
But there was one section where he wasn't, so they went back and it just frustrated him.
Right. Frustrated us even more.
Because we were but then we got Sal, who was
in a previous band with Eric.
Yeah, who was used to studio
click track. Yeah, studio drummer.
So he was very on it.
Yeah.
And he had a good feel, good soul. There's all kinds of things with modern recording techniques, and you know, some of it's voice, you know, whatever enhancement, I don't know what's it called? Pitch correction, correct. So, you know, there's things around that. You know, Bacchus's philosophy really in the ideal world is to kind of record live, right? We're all playing, because that's where we're a live band. So sometimes, you know, being in the studio for the first time, and you know, it starts to become robotic and you start to lose that feel.
I think another thing that can be challenging nowadays when you're going into the studio with a band is to try to figure out exactly the right way to use the technology that's available. I mean, if you look, technology has advanced tremendously, where if you look now, every kid in the country basically has GarageBand on their laptop, and everybody can make a great sounding album. And so the bar has really been raised much, much higher than what it once was for what's considered not only acceptable, but then really excellent music recording. And technology is a part of that. You know, a band like Bacchus is very much rooted in traditional blues-based hard rock, which is awesome. It's a music that I love and that lots of us do. And also, I think, really idolized a lot of those performers from the 60s, 70s, 80s, who really laid down that kind of music. And so, oftentimes trying to capture that kind of, I don't want to call it a retro sound, but that kind of sound that traditional blues-based rock and roll feels comfortable in, you know, there's that fine balance between making something that sounds up-to-date, modern, you could hear it on the radio today, but at the same time kind of captures that vibe. How to make use of technology with that is always a little bit of push and pull with differing opinions. You know, I hear from a lot of people sometimes, oh, well, you know, they didn't have that technology back when they made, and fill in the blank with the album. But I think really over time, the vast majority of musicians used the best technology that was available to them at the time, no matter what it was. You know, the Beatles recorded Sgt. Pepper on a 4-track tape machine, not because they wanted to do something that was kind of a vintage feel. It's because 4-track was cutting edge. Most people were still just going in and rolling 2 tracks of tape and recording more or less live. So really they used the best technology that was available to them. And I think if they were cutting that album today, they'd be using Pro Tools, and they'd be using everything else that was available to them with that too. I think that's another place where then, though, figuring out how that fits into a band, particularly a band like Bacchus, can also be a challenge. You know, how much do you make use of things like studio overdubs of parts? How many takes of a song do you do versus trying to capture it in a more live feel? Do you use even more modern technologies like, say, pitch correction to touch up that vocal? And so I think that was another challenge that we ran into sometimes too, was just some differences of opinions about the role that technology should really play in that music.
We're very thankful to Sal and to Eric, you know, with the studio and all their time. Yeah, we had some disagreements along the way, you know, disagreements on philosophy and different things. But in the end, you know, the product is going to be pretty awesome, and it's 30 years in the making, and we're just about there. So,
and I think I think once we can get this out of the way, these initial recordings, I think we could bang off another album in no time.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, this has been a long time coming. I think this album could be huge, you know, but you know, hopefully it's done sooner than Chinese Democracy, but I think it will be. I think it'll be out very soon.
You
On that feel, like to me, one of the greatest ones was "Believe Me." When we started writing "Believe Me," which probably is the most commercial hit we've had.
Right. I would agree.
I would
Yeah.
say. I mean,
Yeah.
Although we've gotten away from it a little bit, but actually, I think that guy who tried to sign us a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I think he was loving "Believe Me," but he wanted to change the name of the band. I mean, there's too many red flags with that. But anyways, when we wrote that chorus, it was magical.
It's electric.
Let your hair
Yeah.
fly free.
Yeah.
Come on, and I just remember being in this zone of thinking of just driving in, with a bunch of friends in a convertible, but then it always came back to women somehow, and then I thought, well, maybe it's not my friends, maybe it's this beautiful girl, with her hair flying, but you were playing the chorus and the riff, and it just all came together. I'm like, this is a freaking unbelievable song.
Yeah.
It's a great song.
Yeah, great song.
Bitch is gone.
We were at Amity Place, and check out this song.
Yeah.
It's called Pictures.
If Pictures Talk.
If Pictures Talk. I always say
Yeah.
Pictures Pass.
Yeah.
If Pictures Talk, and he was singing it, Pictures Talk, Pictures Talk, and for whatever reason, I had just, I'd like to say I just broke up with this girl, but I never went out with her. So.
Yeah,
So I didn't really break up with her.
we had a lot of breakups with people we never actually dated.
But there was this girl that I guess broke my heart at that night.
Yeah, that might be a better way.
That night, and all I could hear is when he was saying Pictures Talk is "Bitch is gone, bitch is gone." That's all I could hear, and I said, "Oh, it's gonna be Bitch is gone."
Yeah.
You made it happen.
Yeah, that's the one song where where my voice at age 20 something, hitting the screams there, but that one was magical too. I remember playing it at a party at the Brick, and people thought we were kind of a joke, and we pull out the guitars and we start singing "Bitch is Gone." People were like, "Holy shit, that's pretty good."
And the funny thing about that song is that when we started playing out live, we dropped it.
Yeah.
We dropped the song, and then when we got back together, years later, we're like, we got to bring that back.
I mean, and most of our fans, there's two songs that people really ask for live. If we don't play "Bitch Is Gone,"
yeah,
our fans are they're not happy.
So most of them, I just added guitar solos. There were a few such as "If You Want Me." That weren't completely finished, so I remember I added a bridge part to that, or "Sweet Marmalade." Which I think that one might be on the next album, but I added a little intro part to that. It's definitely cool. I've always liked writing songs, but just kind of adding a few little things here and there to songs that are already mostly done. It's a challenge, but I enjoy doing it. That was definitely a good experience.
This song had potential of being a hit, a major Bacchus hit.
Yeah.
So we were evolving as a writing duo, I feel.
Yeah.
And I mean, we would just like kind of our pre-shot at the gigs. A little alcohol would loosen us up.
Yep.
for writing. And this night it was Southern Comfort.
Yeah.
And was not a big Southern Comfort guy, and I don't know how big you were, but we just, to back up a minute, we were playing the Rise team, right? The Coolidge Rise basketball team just beat. It was just a rival basketball game against Black is Back, and this is a big deal. It was in the semifinals, and we beat them, and it was just it was a euphoria. And then so next thing we're in the basement doing one of our writing sessions. You got the bottle out. I think it's a Thursday night, and we're getting through that bottle pretty good.
Yeah.
And the song writing about what was it?
Drinking a bottle, drinking a bottle with a friend, something like that.
It was awesome. It was great.
Yeah.
So we want, here's the thing, and I think Paul McCartney said this. If it's good, like they didn't write down, like they didn't write their music down or their lyrics down. If it was good enough, they would remember it the next day.
Right.
And that's how our songs were. We don't have anything written down. We don't have they just evolve. And this one was going to evolve, but
yeah, a little too much Southern Comfort, and then a horrible night after. So I've had a lot of guilt over this since, but to make a long story short, we end up going into town and outside of a bar, the pub, I believe. We're outside of the pub. And I don't know what Jason said, but
we got thrown out.
Did we? Oh, we were actually in the pub and got thrown. All right, so we got thrown out of the pub, and there was this group of guys, and I don't know what you said to them.
They were making fun of us because we got thrown out.
Is that really? Is that what happened?
They were saying stuff, and
I didn't even remember.
So
I didn't know that part.
I confronted them, and next thing you knew,
you're on the ground.
My face hit the guardrail twice.
Oh, jeez.
And broken nose. Yeah. So. Long story short, again, that song never, put a halt in that writing session.
Yeah, and I remember bringing you home to the brick, and we were just talking, and everyone was yelling at me, like, how could you not have brought him to the infirmary? Like, I guess blood was coming out. Like, I had no idea. When you got beat up, I
didn't get beat up.
Well, when you got thrown to the ground or whatever,
I just wasn't in any position.
I'd never been in a fight in my life.
Wasn't able to defend myself, put it that way.
I wish if I was maybe a little tougher. I was more of a lover, not a fighter. If I was a little tougher and maybe had been in a fight, like I'd never been in a fight before in my life, I wouldn't even know what to do. Oh. So I wish I could have stuck up for you, but I think I remember telling them. I remember telling them just like I remember as we were walking out, be like, guys, just enough, leave them alone or something like that. But
I take responsibility for my own actions.
But it was not the best night. But a great song.
I think that's one we do need to finish though. I think there's potential there. Now, the interesting thing about Room of Glass was we never finished it. We could never finish Room of Glass because every guitar player we ever had after that couldn't nail the beginning, and it was key. The beginning of the guitar solo in the beginning, that made the song, and it wasn't until Max came along who understood what we were trying to do and really nailed Room of Glass. So reinventing and rewriting those songs was it was natural. It was incredible. So all the songs, we never finished Room of Glass. We never finished If You Want Me. Bitch Is Gone even, it didn't really get to that full completion, the bridge, the middle, until Max came along. And just the solos, our songs are guitar driven like Bacchus is, so it was great. And then, writing Sweet Marmalade was really the first collaborative effort with Max involved, and it's an amazing song, right? I mean, it took Bacchus to the next level. That's what I still think the best is to come, right? Why is Bacchus, after 30 years, maybe bigger than ever, back at it? We started with the Midlife Crisis tour, and I think we've had 4 or 5 tours since that. The Bacchus legend is really growing. We keep raising the bar. So every tour we feel like we have, what we want to accomplish with that great gig. then we do it, we want the next great gig. And it's just, that's what keeps you going.
Before every single show, we always say we play every show like it's our last.
That's right. Yep.
And I think the reason we say that is because we really, truly think it could be our last.
This could be it. This could
Yeah.
be it.
I'm thrilled for the show, and I can't wait. It's going to be electric. I can neither confirm nor deny this is my last gig with Bacchus. Time will tell. We'll have to see how that works with my school schedule and my touring with my other band.
This is supposed to be billed as his last gig. However, we were just offered a potential opportunity for a show in Adams, potentially in front of a few thousand people. And Max would probably, he would have to do it.
Always excited to be back here in Adams. This seems to be the culmination of every tour. You know, we tend to wrap up the season and we come back to Adams, and you know, a lot of old friends and family, and we usually pack this place. And Dave here, who is the owner, and his staff are great. So love playing in Adams. We try to get back here at least once a year.
This is our 4th time in Adams, Mass, but this is our 3rd time at the Bounty Fair. But last year we played the Adams Fall Run instead of our usual Bounty Fair. A couple of years ago, during the height of COVID, we were able to play outside here with fire pits, and it was a cool night. It was really cool. But we're going to be playing indoors tonight. It's usually a great crowd, good hometown crowd for Jason, and it should be a lot of fun.
Thanks for having us. We are Bacchus. We are live, we are loud, and we play every show like it's our last. Phil?
Do it. Let's go. Here we go.
Horizons early on, 1992, 1993. And at that time, I was, really missing Adams, right? So we talk a lot about Over the Horizon. And Over the Horizon is kind of over the hills, getting back from UMass to here. And specifically, Mount Greylock was always in my backyard. So the thoughts of Mount Greylock and the trail. And really the point of the song, or the topic of the song, is getting back home, right? And how good it always felt to come back home, and that people were similar, right? No matter where you were, people were similar. So it's a lot of what Horizons is about.
is on your